Full amazing Shabbos. We're coming up to Shabbos Mevarchim Elul. We're blessing the final month, and it's just, in my mind, catastrophic to think that we could go and finish this year, and God forbid Mashiach shouldn't come, and that we shouldn't have our hostages free. There shouldn't be vengeance on the evil terrorist. Anybody that was, quote unquote, I don't want to label, but let's call it a leftist. Radical. Not we're not labeling people, we're not condemning people. There was generations of brainwashing through Russian and Arab disinformation, but the thought that these people were nothing less than savages, it turns out that that's exactly what they were. It turns out that the right was 100% right, that these people, in the simplest of measures, you need to do everything in your power to be powerful, to stop them. And I would go much further and say there's a clear law in Judaism. It's called Habala Harcha Hashkem V'Hargad. Whoever comes to kill you, kill them first. Rabbi Silverstein, he's a very great rabbi, and he's a rabbi in Ithaca, Cornell University, one of the Ivy League colleges. And a lady once came, I heard the story from him, a lady came to him and she says, Rabbi, I want you to talk to my husband. Her husband was actually a former congressman, and he's not happy with Israel. So, okay, and goes to talk to him, not a Jewish guy. So he says, we thought Israel would be established. Remember, this older guy, so he's seen it from the beginning. It would be a beacon of light, and now what's going on? So Rabbi Silverstein said to him, I have a question for you. If somebody's going to come to kill you, are you meant to kill them because, you just have to protect yourself? Or do you have a moral obligation to kill them? He says, Rabbi, I never thought about the question. He said, we are not dealing with displaced people, right? The Arabs that are here in Israel, they came here literally to get jobs. Because if you look at the testimony of Mark Twain, he says you couldn't see a human being for 50 miles. Israel was a swampland. My great aunt, she lived in Jerusalem. She brought postcards, right? She's before the state of Israel. Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, these were 2-horse towns. You could fit the whole city in a postcard. So the Jewish people came. The Jewish people who always lived in this land. There was never a time that Jewish people didn't live in this land. Let's go through a little bit of history here. Number one, all of the ancient nations that lived in Israel, besides the Jewish people, are gone from history, right? It was a land of 30 kings. What does that mean, 30 kings? In the old days, a little city had a king. It was fiefdom. It was tribal. And that finished. The Jewish people established, and they did have some ancient tribes that they had to deal with. And even the quote-unquote Palestinians, if you want to call them Philistines, you can literally fact-check this, and you'll see that every single fact will say that they were gone from history 2,500 years ago. Sancherib came and he mixed everyone up. He took people from one place to another place. The only people who miraculously survived all of the attempts of getting rid of them, because that's what happened in the olden days. One empire would come, take a people over, and that's it, gone with the people. The only people that survived are the Jewish people. And so, obviously, we're talking about people from this land. Arabs, of course, come from Arabia. They don't come from Israel. Jews come from Judea. Arabs come from Arabia. It's pretty simple. And so what happened is many Arabs came, but there's one factor that nobody seems to remember. That the one thing that all these terrorists have in common, there's just one thing that they have in common, is that they are Muslim. It's not a question so much, apart from the fact that there is an ancestral hate because Arabs got kicked out of the house Yishmael, and they have this resentment. So there is that factor, but that's a generalized hatred against Jews, pretty much against the whole world. As Lawrence of Arabia said, the Arabs are xenophobic, which means you're afraid of other people because it causes you the feelings of shame. But the bottom line is that the Arabs literally were not in Israel. And if you just look at the actual facts of who literally was in control of Israel, because the basic narrative, which literally Russia came up with, the founding of the State of Israel, 1948, 67, the Arabs didn't have a problem. Even 73, they didn't have a problem saying, we're Arabs and we're here to kill you. They didn't say we're Palestinians looking for a homeland. They didn't say that. So how did it change? What happened? How did Arabs turn into Palestinians? And again, who are they? They're Muslims, right? There are many Arab Christians. In fact, other Arabs, Druze, Bedouin, some of them Islamic as well, that serve in the Israeli army, that are pro-Israel. And in fact, the Islamic disease, or if you want to call it radical Islam, I call it pure Islam because it's really based on the behavior of Muhammad and the Quran itself. And I've written a book called My Debate with ChatGPT, Does Islam Create Terrorism? But the bottom line is that pure Islam is the factor because Islam cannot handle anyone owning any land anywhere in the world unless that land is under Sharia law. And we in the West don't get it because our religions are not based on land. In fact, Judaism, to some extent, does have a religion, but it's still not based on land. It's connected to the land, but it's not based on the land. You could be a Jew outside of Israel. But listen to what I'm saying. This is the most important factor you'll ever hear about this entire thing. You cannot be a Muslim without conquering the world. Islam puts an obligation upon you to conquer the world. And that's why we don't see much protest from the good Muslims, from those that don't do this, which we would hope are the majority of them, because they don't have a leg to stand on. Because Islam does have a concept. If you just check out my book, My Debate with ChatGPT, and the bottom line is, it says it clearly. The aspiration, I said, what are the aspiration of people? The aspiration of Muslims is that the whole world should be what's called an ummah. It should be under Sharia law. There is no such thing as a true Muslim that does not want the entire world to be subjugated into Islamic law. That's what the word jihad means. Jihad means subjugation. Go to war. As a group, Islam has killed more people. That's an amazing statement. More than the Nazis, more than the communists, more than Mao, more than the biggest murderers in all of history. Islam has killed more people, 700 million people. That's twice the size of the United States. Imagine what that means, because that is what it means truly to be a good Muslim, to go to jihad. And there's another kind of jihad. It's not necessarily a jihad through chopping people's heads off. It's a jihad through immigration. And this is part of what the Muslim Brotherhood does. And according to Egyptian newspapers, Obama Hussein is part of the Islamic Muslim Brotherhood. And to the credit of Mark Rubio, he's finally marking them as a terrorist organization, the largest terrorist organization in the world. They're the founders of Al-Qaeda, the founders of Hamas, the founders, of course, of Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. These are evil, evil, evil people. But they have a plan, and they have a good plan, actually, a very smart plan, which is why do we have to take over people through war? We can take over people through peace. Get somebody that, and this is literally what they do. They talk the lingo. In their manual, they speak about, you just use words like civil rights. Like Obama, when he was president, he was talking about the civil rights of the Iranians. Civil rights of the Iranians? What are you talking about? They're under a terrorist regime. On one hand, you can tell Israel where to build, a government, you can tell them where to build. And in Iran, you can tell people they have civil rights. It's all lies upon lies upon lies to do what? To promote Islam. And that's why he supported Iran, radical Islam. He supported ISIS, radical Islam. He supported the Muslim Brotherhood. He supported the overthrow of Gaddafi in Libya by radical Muslims. He supported the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad in Syria by who? By ISIS, radical Muslims. So don't you get it? It's literally not only Islam through war, it's Islam through deception. And according to Islam, you are allowed to lie. The religion tells you can lie for Islam. So they get into politics, and it's happening all over the world. The mayor of London are now talking about the mayor of New York. These are the biggest cities in the world. They are terrorists. They are there for one reason, and that is to promote the agenda of Islam. And in conclusion, I didn't begin this speech to speak about Islam, but it kind of came up. The bottom line is, unless you are willing to recognize that a cancer is going to kill you, it will kill you. If you ignore cancer, it will kill you. And the same thing is, the Western countries are looking at these people as religious, peaceful people. They're not religious, peaceful people. They are religious, but they're part of a religion. Imagine a cult that decided they have to take over the world through violence and impose their way of life upon you through violence. That is what it is. It always has been that, and it always will be that. So getting back to the most important factor, which is that the coming of the Mashiach, the Rebbe spoke about that there was this prophecy that when a Persian king will antagonize an Arab king, and they will go and seek advice from Aram, which is the West. Long story short, that the Rebbe said was about Iraq. Iraq was kind of the region of Persia. But now it literally happened on a much deeper level. Persian king antagonizing not only an Arab king, they want to take over all the Arab countries, but also the Jewish land. And that was their mistake, because nobody has ever started up with the Jews and walked away alive. There is no nation in history that has come out of starting up with the Jews and survived, because the Jewish people are the purpose of God's creation. We are the ones God chose. It says, B'ni b'char Yisrael, my firstborn son, the Jewish people. The Jewish people are the models of behavior. Many Jews don't realize this. To some extent, even though I say the words, I may not have integrated the words, but we are the models of behavior for the whole world. This is exactly how God set up the world. The world is like a family. If you want to call it, the Father is the creator, and every generation has a Mashiach, has a leader. And in our generation, it's the Rebbe, and he becomes the role model of all the Jewish people. So if you want to call it, it's almost the incarnation of the Father into a soul in this world. And he becomes a leader, like we had Moses in our generation, the Rebbe. And then we are meant to be his disciples, and we are meant to be role models to the world of what it means to live a good, ethical, happy, prosperous life. And to a large extent, that is what's happened in most of the world, besides, unfortunately, even some of the Arab world has gotten it, besides some of the Arab world. China looks like is on their own agenda, whatever. But the point is that most of the world has been civilized. They're operating, fair to say that China also is operating with more civility than the past, but they're operating on civil ideas, and these are biblical ideas. That's, the world only has two paradigms. One is like man eat man, or dog eat dog, or quite simply balance of power. Whoever has the power takes over, or right versus wrong. And it took thousands of years to get to the place, first with the Magna Carta, 1290 in England, and then of course with democracy, the idea that right is more important than power. That's a very radical idea. And that's the Jewish ideal, that right is right and power does not give you the right. So in conclusion, it's really imperative that we spread this message. We have to get clarity on life, and there are a lot of subjects that I brought up over here that bring a lot of clarity. And I'll just conclude with the teaching of the Rebbe that ultimately we're already in the beginning stages of Mashiach, and the month of Elul has in it basically three words: Ani l'doidi v'doidi li, which is really the three is the beginning is the Ani l'doidi, I come to God. Then l'doidi li, God comes to me, and then there's as it is, one word. So Elul is a time that we reflect on the year prior, and there are three main things that we have to reflect on. To what extent did I come to God? To what extent did I make efforts? Because God is always here. The question is, did I show up? Have I made an effort? Have I actually done something meaningful with my life? That's number one. Number two, to what extent have I allowed God to direct me? You could even be a religious Jew and you have the concept of Judaism, but you haven't allowed God to direct you. In other words, you're based on the previous concept of Judaism. But it says, the God, my God, and the God of my fathers. Why first my God? Because number one, you have a direct connection to God. The Baal Shem Tov revealed this. Everything let me rephrase it. The Rebbe kind of, if you want to call it, upgrades what the Baal Shem Tov says. And he says as follows: everything that you see and hear was a message from God. There's some kind of a lesson, and we're all potentially able to always learn more and grow more. And the Rebbe goes further. He says, even sometimes things that you think are messages from God. It's like God is putting ideas into your head, and you have to stop. And you have to say, what is the message? What is God telling me? What do I have to do? So it's not enough to have the Judaism of the past. You have to have the relationship of the present. And last but not least, so not only do we have to think about, okay, how much effort did I put in? How much was I open to the direction God is putting in? But also, to what extent did those two become one? Because every single talk of the Rebbe, bar none, from the last 4 years, which I've had the privilege of taking out quotes from them, says the same idea, that this world is about our discovery and falling in love and desiring of God. But that is the reflection, because no matter what you're a limited person. It is the ability to be humble enough to say it's not what I know that matters. It is the direction of life. It is the concept that it's just like a person says, okay, I have technology. No more technology for me. I got it all. No, you don't got it all. You got what was created till now. But tomorrow there'll be more and more advances. So if you stop today, you have started to die. But if you realize that there's infinite advances in your spiritual, psychological, and goodness and kindness journey, then you start to live. Because now you're part of the infinite, unlimited realm of God, not only a finite thing that your little mind can understand. And then, as you do this more and more, it's like a language. You say to somebody, I don't know, I want to learn Spanish. I don't know Spanish, right? It'd be great to learn Spanish. So now I know a couple of words. Sí, piquito, whatever. So you can't say that I'm a Spanish speaker. If I have to speak Spanish, I have to think about the word, this and that. But eventually I could reach a point that I don't have to think about it. I know Spanish. I can speak in Spanish. And that's the point that we have to reach. That you know God. You know the messages that God is trying to tell you. That you do the messages that God is trying to tell you. You are, in effect, godliness in this planet. And to what extent have you done that? To what extent have you taken those messages and not only heard them, but integrated them, become one with them? Good luck on this, and we have to do everything in our power, because this is the final frontier. This is Mashiach. This is living with Mashiach in real time. And by all of us doing that, I have no doubt about it, that if we manifest it internally, we'll manifest it externally. If we bring the Mashiach within, the Mashiach without, a world of goodness and truth and kindness, and no more confusion will come forever. Thank you for watching.